Well, I'm not going to say we Remainers told you so, but we told you so. um, what's been very, very clear recently is there's two big things that have gone on, especially the past couple of days. Well, one for the past couple of days, and the other has really been growing in steam for quite a while now. And the first one that we're going to go over today is Brexiteers basically now saying and have been, well, they've somehow changed their minds completely. They are now, or were used to saying pretty much from like 2016 right through to 2020 almost of January, was saying no deal Brexit won't do any damage. Brexit won't do any damage at all. This is just Project Fear. And now they've changed their tune, saying, oh, hang on, this coronavirus pandemic recession that is seemingly caused will now cover the damage that's caused by Brexit. you, you, you words honestly fail me. But anyway, this is from the Guardian. The pandemic is being used as a cover for a no-deal Brexit. Only what we've been telling you for past 2 months now. Most of us who have followed Brexit closely believed that coronavirus would soften the government's stance in the trade talks with Europe. The economic shock triggered by the pandemic and the fact that Whitehall is so overwhelmed managing it made it more likely that the government would extend the transition period due to expire at the end of this year, or strike a deal. It turns out the opposite is true. Rather than encouraging a more flexible and pragmatic approach, COVID-19 has instead reinforced the case for a no deal at the very top of government. Perhaps the most important driver is the belief among ministers that the UK economy will be permanently reshaped by this crisis as companies create new supply chains and reshore production to provide greater resilience in future, not least in the case of another pandemic. The government wants a free hand to facilitate this change, and one that it believes will be constrained by the EU's demand that the UK remain tied to its labour and environmental standards and state aid rules. On the other side of the same coin, there are growing fears in Cabinet that maintaining close EU ties would lock the UK into the EU's post-COVID-19 economic measures designed for its 27 member states, with little regard for the UK's interests. This is nonsense, as the EU's rescue package unveiled last Wednesday assumes no financial UK contribution, but it is a powerful argument on the Eurosceptic backbenchers and has scared many in the cabinet. Another argument popular with the backbench Brexiteers, but now more prominent among ministers, is the belief that the coronavirus presents the government with an opportunity to bury the loss of growth from no trade deal under the cover of a much more dramatic drop in GDP caused by the coronavirus. The politics of this are very juicy for the Vote Leave team in the driving seat in government, not least because it is the only really a no deal that fully delivers on their substantive divergence agenda, while any vision of a deal with the EU, no matter how distant, will ultimately tie the UK into EU rules and regulations in some way. Any idea that an idea that they hate and loathe to accept. No deal also facilitates a trade deal with the US and the symbolism of a global Britain for its key ministers, far more important than the limited economic benefits of a US-UK trade deal pact would actually bring. The time is also running out. Despite 3 rounds of talks so far, no progress has been made on the negotiations, and on both sides are downbeat about the likelihood of a breakthrough this week. Big gaps remain in the UK over whether and how far to align to EU standards, the role of the European Court of Justice, and the EU's demands to fish in UK waters. But the government won't extend the transition period. Boris Johnson believes he would struggle to sell voters the extra 10 billion in financial contributions and further spell and a further spell of EU control of UK laws that it would bring. The political intervention on both sides will therefore be needed to move beyond the current stage. There will most likely be an opportunity next month when Johnson meets the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and virtually around that time of a long-planned EU leaders session in the June to review progress. But the EU is unlikely to change its mandate, and absent any progress, ministers plan to make a judgment in September so that they can give businesses clarity about the trading agreements from the 1st of January. They may switch to assuming and preparing for a no deal then. Finally, the survival of Dominic Cummings, Johnson's closest advisor, despite allegations he broke the lockdown rules, also enhances the prospect of a no deal. One reason why. Brexiteers ministers and aides rallied behind him is that he sees it as a personal mission to prevent Johnson extending the transition period in June and delivering a vision of Brexit that lets the UK, quote, take back control. It would be wrong to underestimate his impact on the outcome of these negotiations. Of course, this could be all tactics and bluster. Johnson and his cheerleaders on the backbenches have convinced themselves that such brinkmanship worked during the withdrawal agreement talks, so it is of no real surprise they intend to repeat the trick show now, especially as they believe wrongly that the coronavirus will make the EU more desperate to conclude a deal and buckle at the last moment. But Downing Street is right that December is the real deadline. Germany's role will be key. I say this not as a naive Brit believing that Angela Merkel will ride to Britain's rescue, but as someone who has spent more than 2 decades studying and working on EU affairs. With Germany at the heart of Europe's rotating presidency, Merkel in the final throes of her chancellorships, she will find it very hard to sign off on a no deal. Of all these EU member states, Germany has been the most focused on a long-term geopolitical risk of no deal and the necessity for the UK and EU to maintain constructive ties. But even Merkel can't and won't save the UK from itself and will not agree to a deal at any price. If the net effect of COVID-19 is that these ministers see more benefit than cost from no deal from the dominant view in cabinet, then they will indeed be the outcome at the end of this year. Once again, they promised a deal. Why are we not extending this transition period to get a deal? I thought that was what people voted for. Once again, we go back to the song and dance Vote Leave did of we could be like Norway, we could remain in the single market and customs union, and through all the way to being like this Canada plus deal that again just doesn't exist. There you go. That's unfortunately has been the truth since day one. And as usual, the Brexiteers will cry about, oh, Project Fear. Well, turns out, as we were right all along, as we said, it's just Project Reality. And Brexiteers can't seem to accept the reality of what Brexit actually means and what it will bring and do to this country.